When you were born, you were a long baby, you were a big baby, you were about 13 pounds.
Yes,
But
I was born as a huge baby.
yeah.
Some women are remembered for beauty, others for power, but a rare few are remembered because nature itself broke its own rules.
Hi, my name is Carly Runke. We are at my home in New Jersey.
From eyes the color of oceans in places they don't belong, to necks so long they turn silence into stares, their features rewrite what it means to be human. Each story is stranger than the last, but none will unsettle you more than the woman whose ears grew so large they made her a living record. Meet the 10 rarest women with unique physical features in the world. Vienna Wurstel. Some obsessions whisper, Vienna screams the moment you see her. 25 years old, a content creator from Mallorca, Spain, and an online sensation whose mouth has become her entire brand. We're not talking about a little pout here. Vienna's lips are so swollen, they look like they're competing for a world record. But the question isn't just how, it's why. What could push someone to chase beauty this extreme? Vienna's story starts at 18. That's when she stepped into the transgender world with one goal carved into her mind: to be bigger, bigger lips, bigger curves, bigger breasts. To her, that wasn't just style. It was the ultimate vision of femininity and sex appeal. She got the legal approvals, she found the surgeons, and then came the obsession. Over the years, she's poured $175,000 into reshaping herself, 50 grand on lip fillers alone. And the result? A face that can't close its mouth, lips so inflated that breathing through her nose is almost impossible. Eating, talking, even sleeping, everyday life became a battle. But Vienna doesn't stop. Every 2 weeks, she boards a plane from Mallorca to Frankfurt, Germany, to see the man she calls the world's greatest expert in extreme lips. $2,000 a trip, just to keep her lips permanently inflated. Pain, discomfort, sore throats, chronic congestion, none of it matters. Because for Vienna, beauty has no price tag, and she says she has no regrets. In fact, she's already planning to go even bigger. Which leaves us with the real question: is Vienna rewriting the rules of beauty? Or is she trapped inside an obsession that will never let her go? Carly Runke. Imagine a woman who stands just 3 feet tall. At first glance, you'd swear she's a child. But Carly Runke isn't a child. She's a grown woman with a story that hits harder than her size ever could. Carly was born with Morquio syndrome type A, a rare genetic disorder that twists bones, halts growth, and often steals independence. Even then, she's an outlier, shorter than most people with the same condition. But where her body stops, her presence begins. Carly's personality doesn't just fill a room, it owns it. Her childhood wasn't easy. A world that barely gives average-sized people privilege gave her even less. She was teased, mocked, reduced to a punchline. But Carly wasn't alone. Her brother, Ed, became her shield, standing up when the world tried to push her down, reminding her she was worth more than stares and whispers. And Carly never folded. Instead, she found silver linings and chased every chance to turn struggle into strength. From strutting the Little People of America catwalk to taking up the role of charity ambassador, she turned stages into platforms and setbacks into statements. Even now, adulthood brings its own battles. The hardest part isn't her height, it's the way people treat her, literally and figuratively talking down to her. But Carly answers in her own way, by living boldly, by forcing the world to see what it wants to ignore. Because her life proves one thing: you don't need height to stand tall. And sometimes strength isn't measured in inches, it's carved into the very body that carries it. Ji Yeon-woon. At first glance, she could pass for a doll. Flawless skin, graceful features, the kind of beauty that stops people mid-sentence. But look again. Ji Yeon-woo isn't just beauty, she's power. Arms like steel, shoulders carved from discipline, a physique so commanding it can make even the strongest men second-guess themselves. And that's where your idea of beauty begins to crack. Born in South Korea in the 1980s, Yeon-woo wasn't raised in the spotlight. She didn't dream of trophies or flashing stage lights. What she wanted was change. Day by day, she trained, sculpting herself into something new. Then, at 26, her passion shifted. Curiosity pulled her toward the stage. She entered her first bodybuilding competition, the Korea YMCA in 2010, with no expectations. But when the dust settled, Yeon-woo stood in first place, outshining veterans who thought they had the stage locked down. That moment could have been enough. But Yeon-woo wasn't built for one win. She disappeared from competition for 2 years, grinding harder, pushing limits further. When she returned in 2015 at the Vancouver Pro Women's Physique, she landed 4th. The next year, she doubled down. stepping into two major arenas, the Women's Physique International and the New York Pro. She fell short in one, but came roaring back in the other, placing third against the best in the world. By then, the message was clear. Jin Yeon-woo wasn't just competing, she was redefining. In South Korea, her blend of striking beauty and raw strength made her a sensation, inspiring women to pick up weights and claim power for themselves. Because Yeon-woo proves something most people never expect. Beauty doesn't always whisper. Sometimes it flexes. Kawana Dandara. They called her ape-like. From elongated brows to a wide mouth and skin covered in hair, Kawana's features made people stare, and not kindly. But here's the twist. The very things that drew ridicule became the fuel that pushed her into the spotlight. By her early 20s, Kawana had hundreds of thousands of followers and millions of views. Why? Because she refused to hide. She turned what others used to shame her into a weapon for awareness. Born in Brazil, a country where beauty is currency and women are celebrated for perfect features, Kawana never fit the mold. From birth, doctors were stunned. Excessive hair, paper-thin skin, outward-turned eyelids, a mouth too large for her face. She was also born visually impaired, her chances of survival slim. For months she lived in a hospital, her future uncertain. But survival wasn't the end of her story. Multiple surgeries, including operations on her eyelids, gave her some vision. Childhood, however, brought new battles. Kawana endured ridicule, bullying, and isolation for how she looked. And on top of it all, she was openly lesbian in a society that often pushed back hard. It could have broken her. Instead, she found her voice. During the pandemic, TikTok became her stage. Videos that began as self-expression exploded, drawing nearly 500,000 followers and posts that racked up more than 7 million views. Suddenly, the girl mocked for her face became a face people couldn't ignore. Today, Kawana isn't just a creator. She's an advocate for rare conditions, for the LGBTQ+ community, for anyone who's ever felt like they don't belong. She turned survival into visibility, and visibility into power. Because Kawana proves something few are brave enough to live out loud. What makes you different can also be what makes you unstoppable. Lyudmila. 7 inches. That's the length of Lyudmila's neck, so long that when she steps into a room, silence follows. People don't just see her. They stop, stare, and whisper. But her story isn't about spectacle. It's about survival. Born in Sevastopol, Crimea, Lyudmila entered the world already marked by Marfan syndrome, a genetic disorder that reshaped her body before she even understood it. By 11, her growth spurt had already begun. By 14, she towered at 6'5", her spine fragile, her limbs elongated, her body carrying the signs of a rare condition. Childhood was a battlefield. Endless hospital visits, 3 or more a year. Doctors scanning everything from her liver to her kidneys, trying to stay one step ahead of complications. And all the while, Lyudmila fought a different enemy, the mirror. As a girl, she hated her reflection, loathed the stares, the questions, the isolation. But 16 brought a reckoning. She realized she'd spent too much time hiding, too much time being ashamed of the very thing she couldn't change. That moment split her life in two. Instead of shrinking from the world, she embraced it. Her height, her long neck, her difference. And she wasn't alone. Her younger sister grew just as tall, though without the same condition. Together, they stood as living contrasts, one bound by genetics, the other by circumstance. Lyudmila's story is far from finished. But one thing is undeniable. What once made her feel like a misfit has become her weapon. Her towering frame isn't just an anomaly, it's a statement. Proof that sometimes what sets you apart is exactly what gives you strength. And if you think her size is extraordinary, wait until you meet the next woman, because she isn't just tall, she's a walking time bomb. Grace Elizabeth. Every heartbeat could be her last. That's the reality Grace wakes up to, living with the constant knowledge that her own heart might explode without warning. Her story began long before the diagnosis. As a child, her towering frame set her apart, but at 9 years old, her growth became alarming. Limbs stretched abnormally, her body outpacing her age. Her parents rushed her to the hospital, and the verdict was devastating: Marfan syndrome. The disorder didn't just change how she looked, it put her life on a razor's edge. The most dangerous part wasn't visible. Grace's aorta, the main artery carrying blood from her heart, was swollen, stretched thin like glass under pressure. Doctors warned it could rupture at any moment. She was, in every sense, a ticking time bomb. Life since then has been anything but normal. Endless checkups, daily medication, strict diets. Every step a calculation, every day a risk. And yet, against odds that would crush most, Grace chose to fight back. Not with denial, but with purpose. Instead of retreating into fear, she became a voice for others. Today, she stands as an advocate, speaking publicly, serving as an ambassador for the Marfan Foundation, turning her fragile heart into a rallying cry for awareness and change. But the battle leaves scars. She admits the toll, struggles with relationships, the isolation of avoiding crowded spaces, the weight of being different. Still, Grace presses forward, proof that resilience isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to live in spite of it. Her courage makes one truth clear: sometimes survival itself is the loudest form of defiance. And if Grace's life sounds like a symphony of tension, then the next woman doesn't just live with music, she wields it in a way that will leave you speechless. Keira Knightley. She conquered Hollywood with her beauty, her talent, and her unforgettable roles. But what nobody saw coming was that her strangest gift had nothing to do with acting, because Keira makes music with her teeth. Yes, her teeth. The revelation came in 2018 on The Graham Norton Show, when the star who had sailed the Caribbean and dazzled audiences worldwide sat down, flicked her teeth, and played Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. The audience froze, then erupted. It wasn't a gimmick, it was a performance. Since then, jaws have dropped from London to Los Angeles. Even Cher herself couldn't hide her disbelief when Keira plucked out the melody of Believe using nothing but enamel and rhythm. When asked how it began, the actress didn't spin a Hollywood myth. She traced it back to her school days, when a classmate first cracked out a note with a grin. What started as a childhood curiosity became a hidden talent so absurd, it borders on genius. It's proof that sometimes the world's brightest stars shine brightest in their strangest moments. And if you think Keira's tooth tapping is bizarre, the next woman doesn't need a drink to feel tipsy. Her body does that all on its own. Kirsten Riggs. Imagine being 22 and trapped in a body that feels like it's swaying even when the world is still. For Kirsten Riggs, every step, every movement is a battle against a force no one else can see. The name of her enemy? Friedreich's ataxia, FA for short, a rare neurological condition that strips away muscle coordination piece by piece. But Kirsten's story didn't begin with struggle. She was an athlete, a varsity cheerleader with dreams of leading the squad. Then, on a family vacation, everything changed. Her sister Lauren stumbled through a balance test. Doctors delivered the crushing diagnosis, and Kirsten, watching from the sidelines, saw the same weakness in herself. 2 weeks later, blood tests confirmed her fears. Both sisters carried the same fate. Her cheer dreams? Gone. Her future? Uncertain. And worst of all, there was no cure in sight. But Kirsten refused to sink. In her garage hangs a harness rigged to keep her moving. Physical therapy doubles as exercise and therapy for her spirit. Even as stairs and long walks became mountains, she learned to climb them in her own way. The world, however, hasn't been kind. Strangers sneer, mistaking her slurred speech and unsteady walk for drunkenness. Yet instead of hiding, she fights back with awareness, reminding the world that disability isn't weakness, and ignorance is the real enemy. Because for Kirsten, survival isn't about pity. It's about proving that even in a body that betrays you, strength can still roar louder than doubt. And if you think her battle is extraordinary, wait until you meet the next woman, someone who can't even smile, yet turned that very inability into global fame. Taylor Clements. What if you lived your whole life without ever knowing what it feels like to smile? For Taylor Clement, that question isn't hypothetical, it's reality. Born with Mobius syndrome, a rare disorder that left her facial nerves underdeveloped, Taylor's face was frozen from the moment she entered the world. No grin, no smirk, not even a twitch at the corner of her lips. The things we take for granted, eye movement, speech, even the ability to eat, were daily battles for her. As a child in New Zealand, her difference made her a target, laughed at, bullied, isolated. At 11 years old, she pinned all her hopes on a miracle, a 9-hour surgery that transplanted tissue from her thigh into her face. The risk was massive, but her parents believed it was worth it. When she awoke, the result was devastating. No change, no smile, only more pain. Seizures followed, depression deepened, social anxiety consumed her. For years, she hated the mirror. But slowly, with therapy and the unwavering support of her family, Taylor began clawing her way back. Sports became her lifeline. Then, in 2023, everything shifted. She picked up a camera, turned it toward rugby and motorsports, and began creating content. Her voice, once silenced by shame, was amplified online. Today, Taylor interviews athletes, builds awareness, and shows the world that strength isn't measured in facial expressions. Her life is proof that a smile isn't the only way to radiate joy. And just when you think you've seen it all, the story moves to Nigeria, where another woman turns heads, not with her face, but with eyes so rare they leave crowds speechless. Risikat Aziz. In Nigeria, beauty often comes wrapped in deep brown eyes. But then there's Risikat Aziz, whose gaze isn't brown at all. Look into her face and you don't just see eyes, you see the sea. Two pools of piercing blue, staring back from the heart of West Africa. For 34 years, Risikat has carried those eyes through the crowded streets of Ilorin, Kwara State, standing out in a place where blue belongs only to the sky. No contacts, no tricks, just biology rewriting the rules. And here's the twist. Neither of her parents had them. To some, it's beauty. To others, a curse. In villages where superstition still holds weight, eyes like hers spark whispers of evil powers, of omens, of things not quite human. Yet Risikat insists her vision is sharp, her life ordinary. Even more astonishing, both of her children were born with the same ocean-colored eyes. Doctors call it a genetic mutation, an accident in development that reshaped her destiny. But in Nigeria, science isn't always louder than stigma. People stare, some recoil, some marvel, but nobody forgets. Because in a land where sameness is the norm, Risikat's eyes are a rebellion, proof that rarity can be both gift and burden. And if her gaze feels rare, wait until you meet the next name on this list, Rumesa, whose ears are big enough to rewrite what 1 in a billion really looks like. Rumesa Gelgi. 7.5 feet. That's not a typo, that's Rumesa Gelgi's reality. When she enters a room, ceilings feel too low, furniture too small, and silence always follows. But height isn't the only record she carries. Her ears, measuring 9.5 centimeters, earned her another Guinness title, the longest in the world. To some, it's fascinating. To others, it's fuel for ridicule. Born in Turkey with Weaver syndrome, a rare genetic condition, Rumesa never blended in. As a child, her towering frame and elongated features made her a target for mockery. And yet, instead of letting her difference cage her into mediocrity, she turned it into her mission. Today, she's more than just the world's tallest woman. She's an advocate, a public speaker, a web developer, and a voice for disability awareness. Though her condition means she relies on a wheelchair for most of her movement, she pushes forward with determination, sometimes walking short distances with a cane. Her family, none of whom share her condition, stand firmly by her side, proud of her every accomplishment. And in the moments away from the spotlight, Rumesa enjoys swimming, crime novels, and the simple joy of family dinners. Even her most unusual trait, those massive ears, carry a hidden gift, heightened hearing, proof that what some call a flaw can, in fact, be power. And if Rumesa's ears redefine perception, the next woman does it with eyes so large they feel almost unreal. Maria Ozirna. They don't look real. That's the first thought people have when they see Maria's eyes. So large, so striking, they look borrowed from a porcelain doll. On Instagram, beauty often comes manufactured, filters, surgery, meticulous routines. But Maria didn't need any of that. Her eyes alone built her empire, drawing hundreds of thousands of followers who scroll in disbelief. Some swear she edits her photos. Others accuse her of trickery, claiming no human could look like that. But Maria brushes off the noise. She knows the truth. Her journey began in 2016, snapping photos out of boredom. By accident, she unlocked a viral current. Videos, likes, shares, all orbiting her uncanny beauty. For every critic who calls her a fraud, there are thousands who can't look away. And Maria, unshaken, continues posting with confidence, proving that standing out is not a curse, but a crown. So if you've ever been told your difference is too much, remember Maria. She turned hers into a legacy. Gilvanide Martins. Most people dream of being wealthy and famous and making a difference in life, but Gilvanide Martins has only one dream: to find a shoe that actually fits. Born with lymphatic filariasis, better known as elephantiasis, Gilvanide's feet are dramatically larger than normal. She's typically the real-life Bigfoot, with toes so enlarged and misshapen that they resemble fingers more than anything else. In fact, one of her feet has a sixth toe. For most people, slipping on a pair of shoes is just another part of getting dressed, something most people never give a second thought to. But sadly, it's an experience Gilvanide will never have. Ever since her birth, she hasn't been able to wear shoes at any point in her life due to this medical condition. But if you ever wonder how her condition came to be, you see, elephantiasis is a rare parasitic infection that is often transmitted by mosquitoes. The disease attacks the body's lymphatic system and causes parts of a person's body to swell up, and in Gilvanide's case, that was her feet. However, despite the dark side of things, her social life in her hometown of Poco Novo, Brazil, has been amazing. She gets to go to parties and attend events, and has become famous among her neighbors and city. Everyone accepting who she is without bias or hate. But going to events without wearing shoes to match her dress has in a way caused her not to be confident enough. She's spent years searching for a pair that could work, anything that might give her the chance to feel what it's like to wear shoes like everyone else. Yet despite the challenges, she hasn't given up hope of finding the right pair. While Gilvanide could still manage to find a shoe for her feet, this next person may not even have an option, and that's because she doesn't have any limbs. Amy Brooks. They say some people are born without a chance, but what if I told you one woman with no arms and no legs never got the memo? Meet Amy Brooks. Born with a rare condition called tetraphocamelia, no arms, no legs. She came into this world already counted out. Her birth family? They abandoned her. No goodbye, no second thoughts, just gone. Most people would have said her story ended there, but they'd be wrong, because that's where it started. Amy was placed in foster care with Richard and Janet Brooks, two people who didn't see a disability, they saw a daughter. Adoption took years, but love was instant. And from that moment on, Amy's life stopped being a tragedy and started becoming a testimony. Her childhood wasn't easy. Stairs. She conquered them with a stair lift. Chores? Her parents taught her creative ways to cook, clean, and even sew. Without arms, without legs, without excuses. And with every challenge, Amy got stronger, more independent, more determined. Fast forward to today, she's an artist, an entrepreneur, an author, a motivational speaker, a powerhouse of faith and resilience who has flipped every limitation on its head. People call her differently abled, but that label doesn't even scratch the surface. Because here's the truth. While the rest of us waste time stacking excuses, Amy is stacking achievements. She's living proof that the human spirit doesn't care what body it's born in. And if you're still telling yourself you can't, Amy Brooks is the reason you no longer have an excuse. So if you ever feel odd and not confident in taking up your word or unique traits, remember these women who made a decision to stand out and prove that being different is great. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and comment. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.